McGuinness at Runcha Kajama Lesson Chakta Hahi Evis Murphy.
I think 9 minutes, I think, each, and then my colleague here is sharing 2 minutes. As we discussed this bill in the House, and I welcome the opportunity to participate in the discussion and the debate, we have to look at what's happening in the courts. Firstly, I am delighted that the Courts Bill 2016 has been somewhat derailed in relation to the change of jurisdiction from the High Court to the Circuit Court. All that bill will do is speed up the evictions, whether it's buy-to-lets, there's still someone's home, and we heard earlier on that those people should be protected. So we have to start at the beginning and protect people in their own homes. The Circuit Court and indeed the Registrar's Court are simply not working. They're not fit for purpose. They have no consideration whatsoever for the individual family that will lose their home, and they constantly bring them back either before the Register Court or the Circuit Court, and they continue the trauma and the damage that's being done to families in this country, threatening their home, allowing the banks to continue to threaten their homes, and the local authority does not have the means to respond to the numbers that are now in a position where they are being threatened by repossession. We should stop it by legislation. We should prevent families from losing their home. We did it in relation to all of the bigger accounts and transfer them to NAMA. Why is it that we cannot set up some sort of agency that will take over the mortgages that have gone wrong and keep people in their home and allow them to work it out? Why is it that we allow vulture funds to come in here, clean up on our tax arrangements, and again threaten small businesses and threaten families in their properties? It's not acceptable, and we're crying crocodile tears here in relation to this bill if we do not address the kernel of the problem, which is what I've just outlined. And alongside that problem, you have those homes that have been repossessed by the banks. I think Bank of Ireland somewhere in the region of 400, mainly centred around Dublin, all of them empty. You have Ulster Bank, I think, repossessed somewhere in the region of 500. Again, they're all still empty. Why, if we have a housing crisis, are the banks allowed to leave those houses empty, and that the local authorities cannot be accommodated, or indeed the voluntary sector, to purchase those houses and put tenants into them that are waiting to get a roof over their heads? It's simply a crazy situation. Now, in the next year, we're told by AIB in 2017 that they will have about 6,000 cases that will be coming down the line in relation to repossession. Bank of Ireland have told us that the repossession cases will increase dramatically in the course of 2017. And what we're doing here in this bill is looking at the process to allow the planning permission to go through quicker. Have we learned nothing from Irish Water or the HSE? The minute there's a problem, you think of something major, a major agency, another quango, or more legislation to deal with the problems. Why don't we look back to the county councils? And every speaker here, and I've listened carefully, have complimented their own councils, have identified where there are sites, and have asked for action on them. And the only thing short in relation to the delivery by councils of housing is the fact that they do not have the money. Now, the council lists are being massaged. There are those that can't go on it, but at the same time they can't raise a loan, and they're, in my opinion, in need of housing. There are those on the HAP scheme that are thrown to some ruthless landlords, and landlords that will not look after their property. There are those on Ross or on rent allowance, and they suffer the same plight. No standard, poor accommodation, and wondering when are they going to have secure accommodation. Now, when I look locally, as I said earlier on, I can pick out in my own constituency, as many others have done here during the course of this debate, 3 different sites that would adequately house homes for the elderly, care for the elderly. And those sites are in the ownership of the HSE. There are already existing buildings on those sites that could be refurbished and represented as living units within a setting that provides care for the elderly. There are vacant houses in our counties all over the country that for some reason the council failed to bring them to the letting stage because of some notion that they have to have all sorts of things done with them. I have seen vacant houses in my own constituency that are ready to live in, vacated for one reason or another, and yet the local authority will board them up, allow them to be damaged beyond belief, cost a fortune to repair them, and they don't let them. Now, somebody has to ask them why. Because in every single county we have a chief executive officer. They're paid well, they have enough staff, and yet they do not deliver in the context of the crisis that we now have. So we can't look to the bank. We can actually look to the banks for a solution to some of these problems because they have the houses. We can look to the courts and the legislation surrounding that to keep people in their houses. And it's my firm belief that if we insist on the county managers or the CEOs, as they are known now, to do their work, to take on their work and do it, that we will have sites that will be developed. My fear in relation to this bill and Bord Pleanála is that it bypasses, in ways, the local input from councillors and from people who know how these developments can take place. There is nothing that can replace local knowledge. And in the development of houses, we have to ensure that it fits into the area that is planned for, that it doesn't infringe on the rights of other local authority residents or other residents in that area, in the context of the size and dimension and bulk of the property. We have to have good planning, and I think that that's no better way to safeguard that than to have it locally focused. And the danger is that we will now attempt to reduce the size of the apartments, or else build them to the minimum standard that is required. So it will be up to councils and community activists to ensure that the future tenants of these properties are protected. Because there is nothing as bad as imposing a development for quite a number of houses on an existing site in a city or urban area where there are no facilities. And in all of the discussions that I have heard, they're centred around the provision of housing. Now, we have to be extremely careful about the quality of those houses, about the manner in which they're planned, and we have to have council input into those housing proposals. And there is nothing strange about that. If you look back to the 1950s, when most of the local authority houses were built, they were built well, they were provided with green areas, they were accessible to urban centres, and they worked. And there was many large families reared in 3-bedroom houses. My parents had 11 children in a 3-bedroom house, a local authority house. And it is my opinion that we have to go back to arranging our construction and the delivery of houses around that sensible notion that you can have houses built by local authorities in the local area, put through the local councils, and the local councils be made responsible for them. What is so wrong with that, I ask you?
Thank you, Deputy High. A self-imposed 9 minutes.